All right, so good morning, folks. This is Chris Dagger right here from the theology department once again, doing his MA, just like Nandom is doing his MA. And we're back. Like, this is part two. And I'm very excited to present de novo our good friend and colleague Nandom Gunen, who will basically continue on last time's discussion. So we're going to delve back into it with some novelties, and we're going to talk about some new stuff, some fun stuff, right?
Great.
So, recently, just to put you guys in context, we were visited by a great godfather-like figure in Brian McDonough over at the department, who basically, he ran with the ball for about 2 hours, and we had a little bit of Q&A and back and forth with Brian at the end. And I thought it was probably the highlight lecture of the semester. That's for me. I don't know about you. Like,
exactly. It
right,
was
yeah.
quite revealing, and indeed it was a very interactive session and very deep. Indeed, he has a very great and deeper knowledge of the subject matter.
Right. No, absolutely. He's very deep in what he was presenting. I felt like he just he couldn't stop getting deeper and deeper, and it was very interesting how he would interlock all these different notions as he was just navigating through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, before diving into what we experienced with Brian McDonough, let's revisit Nandom Gunen, right? Let's talk about you. So, Nandom, floor is yours. What do you want to talk about today?
Oh wow! Thanks so much, Chris. It's always a pleasure to be here. And I'm very much delighted to always feature on this great initiative of our department. I think that our department is doing exceptionally well. We are gifted with talented people in the department, and we're doing great. So today, just like you've kicked the ball rolling, we're going to be reviewing what the great professor really talked about on Monday. It was quite instructive. Some of the things that he talked about were very practical and realistic. I just imagine how he was able to talk about those issues raised by the great Lonergan, the issue of the dialectic, history, and so on and so forth, and how he linked it with he connected it with our realities. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, and to me it was exceptionally great.
Right, that's very good.
Yeah.
Just by the way, before we move on forward, for the headset, I'm wondering if you're comfortable in that position or.
Yeah, I think
It's
I'm
more comfortable.
fine.
Okay,
Yeah,
great,
I'm
wonderful.
good. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that relation that we were able to conceive of between Bernard Lonergan and the material brought by Brian McDonough and his analytical approach to the text, or to the method in theology textbook that we read was absolutely phenomenal. I thought that he really dug into it, and it's not one of those lectures where you'd have a professor monotonously just go on and on about a topic and basically bore you to death. On the contrary, I think it was a very amazing experience to have a guy as knowledgeable as Brian just navigate us through the whole thing without necessarily without a minute of boredom, right? And I thought that was very interesting.
Exactly.
So yeah, like Nandom. So for the folks that are tuning in for the first time, even though this is episode 2 with Nandom Gunen, episode 4 for Off Bishop Street podcast, who is Nandom Gunen? Tell us about yourself. Like let's remind everybody who is Nandom Gunen, and talk about Nigeria, pastorship, African theology, all the wonderful
great. It's always
Pandora's box.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure for me to talk about theology from the African perspective and share a little bit about my own personal life. So, like I said in the first episode, my name is Nandom Gunen, and I have been a clergy, a pastor with the Church of Christ in Nations. Um, and in the course of my service with the church, I was able to establish two churches, like I said the previous time, and the churches are doing pretty well. It's just a small church of 50 to 25 to 50 families that worship in the two separate churches. somewhere in the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria, and outskirts of the FCT actually. Um, Aside that, I did mention that I'm married, and
That's good. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and the marriage.
Family, everybody.
Yeah.
Go get a family. Go build a family. Well, who am I to talk? I'm not even married. I don't have kids, but I'm married to theology. That's my wife. It's the theology department, right? The theology studies, my books.
No, you're in love with theology, but
Right,
surely you will get married one day if you want to.
Yeah. That's why they give you a graduation ring when you graduate your undergrad. You know that ring that you get, like a engineering ring on the little finger. It's basically say that you're married to your profession. Just as much as you're married to your wife.
Oh,
anyway,
wow.
I'm just joking. But
yeah,
anyway,
that's
symbolic. But,
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, the marriage is blessed with 4 children, 2
Right.
boys
Amen.
and 2 girls.
Amen.
And they're doing very well. Aside the pastoral work that I do, I also work with the government of Nigeria. I work with the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund, and basically what we do is we implement what we call the employee compensation scheme, where we offer support to workers who sustain injury in the course of their work.
Right.
Could be financial support, could be supply of artificial limbs to people who their legs got broken and so on and so forth. So that's what I also do. And aside that, I have been involved in the fight against human trafficking in Nigeria.
Right. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, and that's another area that a lot of things are happening. It's quite sophisticated. It's quite it's an area that before now attention was not being given to it, but because of the level at which it has been escalated in the society, and these rampant cases of human trafficking in Nigeria, and so there is that kind of an awareness, a kind of people are getting to know more about human trafficking. So we felt that, well, it's good that we participate in this and continue to educate our people on the danger of human trafficking.
Right.
So recently, one of the major things that we did was, because we see that Nigeria is a society where people respect their faith very well, where both the Christians, Muslims, these are the 2 predominant religions in Nigeria. And the adherents of this religion, they hold the religions in high esteem, and they respect the priests, the imams, the sheikhs. They respect them so much. So we felt that these leaders could be very instrumental in preventing human trafficking. So what did we do? We come up with an interfaith collaboration among these 2 critical stakeholders, and we put them together in a hall in Abuja for a conference, and we discussed, we opened up, we brought the problems before them, we showed them the statistics, we brought in people who were literally trafficked and rescued and then brought back to Nigeria, and they shared their stories firsthand. So, and it opened the eyes of the faith leaders that this thing that we are dealing with is very deep in the society.
Right.
And so we said, what can we do about this? So what we did was we now set up what we call a working group, and this working group constitutes of both the Christian and the Muslim leaders. We selected some few highly intelligent and influential ones among them. We put them together again in a room for 2-3 days, and then we come up with a document known as the prevention and interfaith approach to the prevention of human trafficking, where we bring in stories from the Bible as well as stories from the Quran, where human trafficking happen and where it is prohibited. Issues of justice, issues of the story of Joseph in the Bible, for example, and so on and so forth. Right. So we're able to come up with a very comprehensive document that can be used either in the church or in the mosque to a kind of educate people about human trafficking and its consequences and so on and so forth.
That's super interesting that you're basically weaving theological and religious material in order to basically combat something that's so nefarious
Yeah.
and disgusting and sinister as human trafficking. And you know, I'll claim the obvious. I'll state the obvious rather. Like in Canada, we rarely hear about human trafficking
Yeah.
on the news. Like we hear about, I don't know. Right now, what's big in the news, specifically for Canada, is that on the west coast, like in BC or in Alberta, a lot of young people are dying from fentanyl overdoses, and that's only one example of the shit that we're going through. So
Mm.
we have our struggles in Canada, but I can't imagine, like, if I were Nigerian living in Nigeria, and as you said, I mean, if this issue of human trafficking is rampant, I would be alarmed. Like, my anxiety would be through the roof, just being afraid for my daughters coming back from school, if or not coming back from school because some motherfucker decided to kidnap my daughter and traffic her because of her youth vitality and try to groom her in a
Yeah.
sort of way. Like I would, uh, you know, I would definitely chase that guy's ass down and do some bad things to him.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like it's great that you're, and it's super interesting that you're attacking it ideologically and theologically, because it really reminds me of my favorite verse of the Bible,
Okay.
right? Which is, we fight not, it's Ephesians 6:12, right?
Yeah.
We fight not against flesh and blood,
Yeah.
but against principalities
Yeah. Yeah.
in high places,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
it's a spiritual warfare,
Yeah.
right? And I know I kind of botched the verse, but that's pretty much how I remember it. That's my favorite verse, so I should probably know it better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not about like the animalistic nature of the human being, although that can be basically interlocked with a lack of morality.
Yeah.
But that lack of morality is 100% spiritual, cerebral, and intellectual, right? And I'm glad that you're tackling it from a religious and theological angle,
Yeah.
because that stronghold is an ideological opponent that you know has to be fought. I mean, think about human trafficking. That's like, and I'm pretty sure you've witnessed it. You've witnessed it firsthand, and you've really talked about it several times in different lectures.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that Islam and Christianity, both religions are basically contributing their knowledge
Yeah.
in that respect.
Exactly.
Do you have examples of biblical passages, either from Christianity or Quranic passages from Islam that are used to expose human trafficking?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so very much, Chris. I'm super excited about this discussion because essentially this is one of the things that when we begin to talk about it, it kind of crack me up, and then because I hear the stories, I see firsthand the kind of trauma that victims of human trafficking have been exposed to.
Right.
From the biblical accounts,
Yeah.
the most readily available example that comes to play is the story of Joseph.
Okay.
The story of Joseph can be likened to a kind of it's a kind of a human trafficking. Now let me just say this: there are some basic things that we need to know about this human trafficking. Most times, it is being perpetrated by the people we know.
Oh, like family members.
Holy. Exactly, like family members, or like neighbors who knows you, or people who have some form of information
like
about
some backstabbing piece of shit could like basically
Yeah.
betray you, and one day they're your friend and the next day they're kidnapping your kid.
And then it's not just it doesn't happen in the form of a kidnapping or violence way that we can imagine. If you look at the story of Joseph, what prompted his being trafficked was a kind of hatred, family jealousy, because of, he had a dream, his brothers going to bow down, and maybe his father had a kind of a preference for him. So for an incident to be considered as a human trafficking, certain indices must be visible. Number one, there must be a kind of an exchange of finance. Number two, the person will be transported, and then number three, the person will be moved, transported from one spot to the other, and the person will be subjected to a form of exploitation. Could be sexual exploitation, could be domestic servitudes, or it could be outright slavery. Now, all these scenarios played out in the story of Joseph. Now, some of the practical experiences we've had is that these things does not really take place in the form of in a violent manner. It takes place in a very subtle and in a way that you will least expect. Okay, let me give you a story, an instance of a lady. During our conference, one of the ladies, we had two victims that came to testify. We don't call them victims; we call them treasures.
Survivors.
Right? Yeah, survivors. Right. Treasures. Treasure is just our own coinage, because of the value that we place on them.
Nice.
This lady, apparently she lost her father, and the father was the breadwinner, and of course, nobody to provide for the family. The mother wasn't working, so the uncle knew their vulnerability, so he just came around. Oh, I have a friend that has a business in the UK. All right, and then please can you, or in Italy or Spain or somewhere, and she needs a worker, and you see your daughter is not working and you are suffering. So this my friend is interested in worker in her business center, and for me I see it's a good offer. Won't you take this? And then the mother will say, wow, what an opportunity. And then she will ask the daughter, what do you think? And she will say, mommy, this is what I'm looking for. And the man will now say, good. So you know what? Don't worry about the expenses. We will pay the flights. We will do your international passport. We'll do everything. All you need to do is just present yourself.
That's crazy.
Now, the moment she accepts that offer without investigating further, that's where the problem starts, right? So she takes the offer. Sometimes they procure the international passport. She actually travels by air, but immediately she lands at the point of entry, another cartel or member of the traffickers ring is already there to pick her at the airport. And once the person picks her to the airport, the person takes her to where she will continue to become. She has been trafficked at that point. Because number one, her travel document will be seized.
Okay.
And then she will be there in the room.
Well, but my question here is, like, the minute she starts to sense that something is fishy, and that, if somebody is picking me up, confiscating my travel documents, at that point, doesn't that trigger an alarm? Like, doesn't that, or is the naivete still there?
It's not something that immediately he takes her, he just confiscate her passport. They may just take her to a place that she will not suspect anything. They may even show her a business center that she can work there maybe for the first 1 week. They will make her feel at home, comfortably, give her food. You understand?
Like, everything is staged.
Everything, yeah.
From the get-go, so that, she's well numbed into the system, and then...
Exactly. Maybe after 2 or 3 weeks or 1 month, okay, that's when the reality will begin to down.
Which seems like a long time.
The traffickers are never in a rush.
Okay.
They are never in a rush. But I can also tell you that this thing happens everywhere. Now, there's a domestic trafficking and there's also international. The scenario I've just played out is an international one.
Right.
Yeah. And then the domestic ones also happen internally. Now, in many advanced countries, including Canada, how it happens is through internet.
Right.
They lure small, young, vulnerable people through the internet, and then they subject them to all forms of abuses. You know, they subject them to all forms of abuses. That's how it happens in some climes. But in the developing society, of course, there's high level of poverty.
Right.
So they take advantage. That is the point of vulnerability.
Right.
Yeah, so they devise different means. Or sometimes they see a young man who is talented in football or soccer.
Yeah, we talked about the difference last time. Not the same game, guys.
Yeah, so they say, oh, there's a club somewhere that needs you.
Right.
And then when the person goes, yeah, it's the same thing, it's the same procedure. 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month. After the person has relaxed.
Right.
And
the guard is down.
Yeah.
Fully vulnerable, fully open to whatever.
Exactly. Then they hit the person from at the time that he or she least expects. So that person has been trafficked at that point in time. So essentially, in our own organization, our approach has been essentially preventive, because it's much more expensive to cure after the damage has already been done.
Right.
So preventive approach is always the best. And how do we do that? We do that through sensitizing people about like the materials we've just made, where churches, mosques will now have access to them and begin to talk to people, like maybe a Bible study group, like the way we do in churches. But then it's an opportunity to educate people on the danger of human trafficking. Then apart from that one, of course, the government, for example, in Nigeria, has taken that extra step. Some schools, I think there are some books that have a section on human trafficking. So children are already beginning to get education about human trafficking. So number one sign that you know is that when an offer is too good to be true,
right?
Yeah, so you begin to question it. And if somebody is offering you that there's a company in so place, you need to get the website of the company, you get the address of the company, and if possible, you put a call across to them yourself to verify the authenticity of this. And then when somebody is too much in a haste, is trying to rush you on something, I think it's a red flag.
Massive red flag.
Yeah, that you have to watch out for. So these are some of the things. But let me quickly go back to what I was saying. Now, our efforts through the manual that I told you, then we realized that Nigerians are in love with films. You know, Nigeria is the home of Nollywood.
Oh, really? Nollywood.
Nollywood.
I like that. So you have Bollywood in India, you have the classical Hollywood in the States.
Yeah.
Then you also have Nollywood.
In
Nigeria. I was actually going to ask if films were produced about this stuff.
Yeah, so we have we've produced films. If you Google your internet, you will see some trailers on Europe in My Heart. Europe in My Heart is a film that was done. I think I had the privilege of speaking to some undergraduates here in the Department of Theological Studies about this human trafficking here, and I was able to take them through the trailer on the Europe in My Heart. It's a film that gave out a life, or a kind of a life story of a lady that Europe was planted in her heart.
Wow.
What does that mean? They've put in her heart that once she travels to Europe, her problems are over. You understand?
Well, I mean, is that true though?
How could that be true? Is what the strategies that the traffickers use.
Right.
Yeah, but is that it's not true that once you travel to Europe, your problems are over.
Oh yeah, it's fairy dust.
So is it traffickers that will come? Wow, you know what? I have an offer in Europe, and if you travel to Europe, you are just well settled. So that film is a kind of projecting to them that the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Right.
And aside that, traffickers could use it to manipulate your life and then take you up to go and put you as their slave. And then you don't have your passport anymore, you can't travel back home, they molest you either sexually or you become a domestic servant for years. You see? Then we also had a film on what is it called again? What's the title of that film? Desperate Journeys. Desperate Journeys is about young Africans who also believe that once they travel to Europe, their problems are solved.
Mm-hmm.
So the traffickers took advantage of that zeal in them and then made them to want to cross to Europe via the Mediterranean Sea. Have you heard that before?
Oh, well, no, I've never.
Yeah, well, they want to trek, they want to move from Nigeria up to Niger, to Libya, and then cross to Italy.
Interesting.
You get the point now?
Yeah.
But it's the traffickers that kind of subject them to that kind of traumatic experience. So those kinds of information that we put out there, which are realities, sadly though, is to give the people first-hand information that look, when you see this happen, you should know that this is something that you shouldn't be in a haste to accept. This is something that you may be about to be trafficked. So now, these are some of the ways, kind of efforts that we've made. Then aside that, we also realize that there's an interconnectivity between human trafficking and poverty.
Right.
The scenario that I've shared with you is that of somebody taking advantage of the vulnerability of the poverty of this young lady. So what we did was we're able to access funds. Fortunately for us, some government in Europe, particularly what you have mentioned is the Danish government. I think they are doing exceptionally great. They've been funding most of our activities, and they gave us this funding and we're able to move into a place called Edo State in Nigeria, Benin City. Reach out to lots of students, about 10,000 people.
Danish students in Denmark?
No, not Danish students. Danish government gave us fundings, and then we reach out to students in Nigeria, in Edo State, about 10,000 different children of school age, and then some of them that are into small businesses. The Danish government also gave us fundings to a kind of augment what they are doing. Coincidentally, yesterday I spoke with the project manager in Nigeria, and he told me that out of those businesses, about 200 of them are standing and doing well. So when people have sustainable means of livelihood, they are not likely to allow themselves to be trafficked. Yeah, because why are you coming to tell me that I have an offer somewhere when I know that I'm already doing well? You can't even come and meet me.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, beacon of light out of darkness, when that people might be chasing after to escape poverty, as you mentioned, or escaping like bad conditions. But like you mentioned, like the grass is not necessarily greener on the other side.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to vicariously put myself in that position where if I am an individual who is getting tempted, and if I throw myself in the wolf's mouth and basically get trafficked, and at first I have a lot of questions. Like, first they bring you to this office environment, they serve you food and all, so everything seems pleasant at first, but I'm thinking, okay, well, if somebody gets an offer, let's say to the UK, right, and they bring him or her to that office in the UK, well, what the hell's the UK government doing? Or like, how could the UK, as a sovereign country, like, how could they not detect that one of their offices is being used to groom and human traffic somebody?
Well, in the first place, I want you to know that human trafficking is a crime
Right.
perpetrated by criminals, and they have a way of beating out every system. It's a cartel, it's a networking. The first person that will go and meet the person that they are targeting to traffic is number one. The person that will coordinate it at another level, then where they will go to the final destination. This is a cartel. They are well organized, they are well sophisticated, they have the money, they know every system, they know how to beat every system.
And okay, well, but it's still like in a first world country like the United Kingdom,
Yeah,
um, if a lady gets introduced to her new office job, which is obviously transitory, given that her final destination is to get trafficked, um, I do understand. I understand that these criminal organizations are very adept
yeah,
at just passing under the radar and not getting detected.
yeah.
But at some point, when we dismantle these strings of criminal activity, uh, aren't these office spaces in Italy, Spain, the UK, or whatever, aren't they reprimanded in any way? Like, aren't they?
Well,
Don't they get penalized?
yeah. Well, I don't know exactly.
Sorry.
But essentially, what we do is based on the information we get. Um, However, I know very well that those countries, they are not resting, they are not sleeping, they have strong laws against human trafficking.
Right.
Yeah, the UK, Italy, and so many other advanced countries of the world, they have, and they don't take the issue of trafficking lightly. Once it is brought to light, they don't take it lightly. But I also know that they do find out some. Recently, it's on the news. One of the most, let me use this word, celebrated um, criminals of human trafficking that is very, very rooted in trafficking people,
Right.
from Nigeria to Italy, was arrested recently. I think the like I said, they have a way of beating the system because they also have people in high places. And then she went to Nigeria and she thought that she had escaped. She never knew that she was still under the radar.
Mhm.
But the law caught up with her. The Interpol, they caught her in Nigeria and they moved her back to Italy.
So that woman was the one trafficking other people.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. It's a kind of a link. She may not directly be involved, but you had her people well planned. You get the point now?
Right.
Yeah, because it's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. So it's a kind of a ring. So, but there must be someone up there who is the main key player, and I think she fall into that category.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the government found her out. So it's not as if those government are sleeping as well. They are also doing their best, and so long as long as they are able to track down someone, definitely they will do their investigation, and then they will catch the person, and the person will face the law.
Yeah, that's a good response. That's
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I'm glad that that type of mitigation is undertaken to attack these difficult problems that
Yeah.
that are interlinking different countries. It's an international issue. It's not
Exactly.
only a local issue.
Exactly.
Because first world countries are getting involved with these types of behaviors. But let's just dive into the details here. Like, okay, if young lady gets brought to the country and gets her office job, gets food served to her and everything, and it seems like paradise at first, but how does it slowly turn into hell? Like, how does it slowly devolve into, uh, you know, exploitation, abuse, or sexual abuse, or whatever? Like, what are the steps? Like, and what is the end destination of how would you describe like the abuse that takes place at the very end? But how do we get there, and what happens at the end?
Okay. Usually, what traffickers do is that they traffic for different purposes. There's human trafficking for sexual exploitation. There's human trafficking for um, domestic servitude. There's human trafficking for forced labor. There's human trafficking for organ harvesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So all these and so many reasons. But some of the abuses, the most common one is this for sexual exploitation.
Mhm.
So right from the beginning, the moment they traffic that young girl, she is meant to be a sex uh, instrument of sexual abuse.
Right. Like a sex slave, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the leader, right at the beginning, when they were saying, "Don't worry about your ticket, don't worry about your passport, don't worry about everything about this thing about the travel document. We're going to pay for you." The main trafficker will supply those funds. Now, it begins to get sore after some time, after a while. She is going to tell her that, okay, see now, this journey that was procured for you, so amount of money was used for that purpose, and you are expected to pay back.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like you're imputing guilt onto a
Yeah,
person
exactly.
when they didn't even ask for it in the first place.
Yeah.
They just got suckered into it.
Yeah, but let me also make something clear. There are some people that go into it consciously, and they they enter into agreement. Since you want to go on this journey, you don't have the money. We'll procure everything for you, and this is the amount of money. When you enter and you start to work, you are going to pay this money.
Okay.
So it happens like that as well. Now, by the time she arrives, and then after a while, okay, you are supposed to pay this money, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so you got to start, you got to go to work.
Right.
You go to work. But maybe before then there has been some cajoling, okay, they've taken the passport, they've collected. It's as simple as, let me see your passport. So now you need to work and pay this money.
Mhm.
Okay, now that I didn't get the work that you asked me to come and do, what work can I do?
But in that particular turning point, at that particular turning point, doesn't he or she revolt or rebel against the person and say like, hey, like I was here to be a soccer player. Like, well, what are you doing? Or the lady, like, I was here to get this dream job. Like, what is actually going? Doesn't that person rebel, or what happens if they rebel?
You are the person can rebel,
Right.
but that rebellion comes with a price.
Okay.
Because what they do is that they will subjugate the person until the person is broken.
Right. Okay.
Physically, until the person feels that hopelessness. and feels at that point, this is my reality.
Shit. Because the person's trapped. They can't seek out for help. They're fucked, basically.
The person is being controlled. Is
right.
being from one point to the other. It takes let me use this word, divine intervention, for the person to escape at that point, because already the person is within a ring.
Right.
Anything that you do is within those rings.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go there, okay, go and meet that so person. He will tell you what to do. Now, already they are sending her to the man that will begin to abuse her, and the man knows how to subjugate her into submission. And at that point, she has been demobilized. And that's why people that are victims or survivors of human trafficking, they hardly trust anybody.
Of course.
If you are giving, this is $50, you're giving it to her. To her, she's imagining that you are giving her that $50 for a purpose. She never thinks that you, out of your own kindness, you could carry $50 and say, take.
That's insane, because I mean, it's
because of the level of subjugation and how do I put it? So rehabilitation, because we at the point that we also have an intervention. Apart from prevention, we have the rehabilitation and reintegration into the society, and that is the most difficult aspect of the work, because here you are dealing with someone who has been traumatized.
Yeah, mentally traumatized.
So the process of rehabilitation here is extremely difficult. So a lot of psychosocial support, a lot of emotional support, a lot of spiritual support, a lot of counseling, and so on and so forth. Lots of things happen in the safe house, you see, and then some of them would now pick up and start their normal life again and become productive in the society. But there are some that never recovers.
I mean, I totally understand. It's it's a sad state of affairs, because what I see here at the emotional, or not at the spiritual level, is this whole deal of human trafficking is a kindness killer.
Exactly.
Right? Like it extinguishes any form of recognition of kindness. Like if the person's on the bus and somebody lets them sit down, maybe let's say, I don't know, if they're just a heavy set or something, if they're a heavy set person, then they're going to be thinking, oh, okay, well, you think, I can't stand up on my own. So people are going to be, survivors of this kind of thing they're going to be very reactive and emotional, and they're not going to be able to see the beauty in the world, or the optimistic aspects of the world, right? Their whole life becomes pessimistic and cynical, and that's the saddest part, is the after, right? And what makes me even more frustrated is the fact that right now, with human trafficking going on, I'm pretty sure that not everybody gets liberated, right? A lot of people are slaves for life.
Exactly. But I have good news, because in our organization, I am so delighted that lots of young women, young girls, have actually been rehabilitated and reintegrated into society. Most of these rehabilitation, like I mentioned, psychosocial support, spiritual support, counseling, visitation, and so on and so forth. Now, all these things put together is able to begin to mold the life of the survivors again. And then after a while, we find out from them what they would really want to do with their lives. and some of them will just want to take into a particular trade. Some of them will just want to go back to school because they are quite young.
Right.
And I'm so happy that um, most of the residents in our safe house, some of them they went back to school, and then they went to what we call secondary school in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, here I think it's high school.
High school. Right.
Yeah, and then they're able to pick up their lives from there. So through the general support of kind kind spirited individuals, we're able to get fundings and then send them back to schools. Um, Aside that, uh, I want to mention the story of this young man who was trafficked to South Africa. But when he was trafficked, they used him as a pimp.
Use them as, yeah. Sometimes they kind of subjugate people to like middle management positions, let's say, and do the dirty work. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But we're able to rescue him, and then he came back to Nigeria. Now he has a football academy.
Okay, that's very wonderful.
Train young people, and he will train them, and then he will educate them about human trafficking. You see now. So there's this case of a lady that was in I think she came from Finland through the support of an organization in South Africa known as A21. And then she came, we accommodated her while in Finland. When she was rescued by an organization in Finland, they sent her back to school. She even went to university. He studied pharmacy. And when she came back to Nigeria, um, after she stayed in our safe house for a while and received some rehabilitation, and then we saw that we subjected her to all our parameters, and we felt she was okay to be reintegrated into society. And we tried to find out what would she want to do with her life. And then she said, well, she had gone to the university in Finland, and so she wanted to go for her mandatory National Youth Service Corps. You remember I told you that every graduate of Nigerian extraction must go to a paramilitary National Youth Service Corps for 1 year.
Yeah.
So she wanted to do that. So we had to communicate those organizations in Finland, and they got her results, her credentials, and they sent down, and she went to do her National Youth Service Corps, and today she has a job and she's living a decent life.
Is she working as a pharmacist? Because she did pharmacy? Or?
Yeah, I think she got a job with one of the pharmaceutical department in a hospital.
Okay.
Yeah, she started doing that while doing her NYSC.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the good thing is that we have some partnership with some organizations that also help out those of them that have acquired some particular trainings. If there are organizations that needs that kind of their skills, we connect them with those organizations, and then they start to work there, so that they too can have decent life in the society.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you know. So there's also good news about it. The good news is that some of them have been able to recover their lives back.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
that's miraculous.
Recover their lives back and continue their lives as decent members of the society. You know, there's this approach. The law enforcement agents, if they see those kind of people, they no, this person's a criminal, so on and so forth. But we change the narrative. I remember organizations has provided trainings to law enforcement agents on how to handle this kind of a thing. It's not something that you tag them as criminals. This might be a situation that they didn't really bargain for it. They just found themselves into it.
Right.
Yeah. So you treat them with love. You show them love. You show them kindness, so that they would once again trust.
Mm-hmm.
And then have their lives back. But if you tag them as criminals already, they withdraw.
Right. Right now, for sure, they're going to be reticent on as to, yes, they're going to feel under attack, and they're probably going to
Exactly.
withdraw from the dialogue.
Exactly.
Right? It's not what you want. Right?
Exactly. You see. So this is a global problem. It's a global challenge, and every now and then, when new strategies evolve, you realize that the traffickers also, they are ahead with another means of doing these things. You see now. Before now, they do things physically, but now they utilize the social media, the internet as well,
Right.
to carry out this kind of nefarious activities.
No, yeah, they wield it as a weapon to do their work, and it's it's definitely something to look into. Like just this entire beast that we have, the internet, right? Like, to understand how it can be used for good, but sometimes you have all these nefarious people that are going to use it for bad purposes. And did human trafficking increase because of the internet? I'm guessing it did.
Because of the internet?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any official data to back up what I think it is, but I want to believe that it. I may not want to say increase, but rather it brings a new dimension.
Right.
It introduced a new dimension into the human trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before now, people just come to the interior villages where they know that people are not well educated, and then they begin to offer them some juicy opportunities that are not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, they are able to traffic people and destroy their lives. But now, with the availability of the internet, they can sit down in their rooms and create some fake employment agency and find a way of recruiting the people. So in a way, I think that it just introduced a new dimension to it. You see?
And yeah, so that new dimension definitely facilitates a lot of communications that can also be like, it's a double-edged sword, because people can pull off their shit on the internet, but at the same time, the internet allows agencies to, or like the police or any justice, justice agencies or forces of justice, let's say, to actually tap in and look at what's going on and keep an eyeball, right? So it is a new dimension, I think, but I think you're treading pretty smartly here, because I don't think it's necessarily increasing human trafficking, despite that it has the potential to do so.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's what scares me personally, is that social media and all these transitions to digital. Does it make human trafficking easier or harder? My knee-jerk response would be, it might be more dangerous and far easier for human traffickers to perform their crimes. But then again, thanks to the internet, sometimes they can be tracked down.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm a human trafficker, would it be a smart decision for me to wield the internet as a viable option, or should I just keep it low key and stay under the radar, right? So I think it really depends on the different criminal organizations, because I don't think it's one single organization that's performing the trafficking.
Definitely, yeah.
Right,
exactly.
there are different gangs.
Yeah.
Right, it is a mafia in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, but the good news is a lot of these people are able to come out, and obviously they're scarred for life, that's for sure. But still, they're able to cope with that and live somewhat of a happy life afterwards. If we were to link human trafficking and everything that you're investigating on the theological front with Lonergan's search for meaning, I would be thinking, okay, well, if I'm a human trafficker, what is my ultimate purpose? Is it all about the money? Why do they do it? What is their experiencing, judging, and deciding process? The different steps found in Lonergan. Why would human traffickers do what they do? Other than the money.
Yeah.
Is there another purpose? A higher meaning?
I think that connecting with the Lonergan's meaning, I think for me, it could be because of the money.
That's it.
Yeah, it could
Okay.
be because of the money, and it is, yeah, in connecting it directly in meaning with meaning,
Right.
as given by Lonergan. I want to think that the traffickers would be doing it for the money, because um, it's an easy money. It's an easy money, and the money comes. It's not a small money.
So they're unable to see beyond the threshold of money, like, because at some point, like, you're gonna get all that money, but even the richest people here, like the Hollywood celebrities, the richest millionaires, they're gonna tell you about a point in time where in their life, even with all the money and all the riches of the world, they're gonna hit a depression point. Like, and at some point, like, okay, well, don't I mean I'm pretty sure this criminal business is super lucrative, but at some point, don't these people stop and think, well, wait a minute, I have all this money, but we're still doing it, and we're still conducting these criminal operations. Like, at some point, money is not going to make you happy.
Yeah,
it's a known fact.
That's right. But again, we must understand that it's just one meaning. Just one thing that gives them meaning to this.
Right.
Yeah.
Profit.
Apart from the money, the profit that they make from it, it is also to satisfy their desires.
Okay.
Because, for example, the women that are trafficked to be exploited sexually.
Right.
Ultimately, the meaning is so that they will get someone that they can exploit sexually.
Mm-hmm. So for carnal pleasure.
Carnal pleasure.
As an ultimate good that they're chasing. Okay.
Exactly. That could be the ultimate good to them.
For them, yeah.
And eventually, they get to a point that some of the traffic, some of the traffickers, some of them, they get to the point that they even want to regularize their living with the lady that they are that they're exploiting.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Well, yeah, they're building their own fantasy landscape.
Yeah.
In their mind with regards to what they're doing.
Exactly. So, also, you remember I also said that people are also being trafficked for organ harvesting.
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, what's that all about?
Yeah, okay. Organ harvesting is, generally there's this issue of sensitive organs like the kidney, lungs, and so on.
Right.
Transplant.
Right, transplanting and selling. Basically.
Transplant.
Okay.
Yeah. So in medicine, so you realize that since donors are not coming up to donate part of their body for transplant, people who want to do this illegally have now found a way of trafficking human beings, that they will go and use them to harvest their organs for transplant.
So they would kill these people, basically.
Sometimes.
Wow. I'm floored. Like it's because that's, to me that's even worse than getting sexually exploited, because sexual exploitation is one thing. At least the person stays alive. But if the person gets killed so that they get looted their organs and delivered to different medical settings to sell their organs for huge amounts of money.
Yeah. Sometimes they are killed. Sometimes they may not be killed. They may tell them. At that point, they will want to sell part of their organ. But at what price? Then the person who perpetrated that act will now sell it at a much more higher. So it's a whole lot of things. But I would like you to also go and check about these things. You will discover this this root reality that will shake you to the ground.
Right. No, for sure. I should probably take a look at that.
You will see that we are living in a very crazy world.
Right.
These things, and it's very difficult to come up with an accurate data or an accurate information. And I think that the church organizations and civil organizations in the US, they knew the danger and the implication of these things. That was why I think it was when George Bush was the president of the US that there's this serious activism around human trafficking, serious activism by by churches and other social activists.
Right.
You know, it was at that point that the government of United States prioritized the issue of human trafficking and came up with strong legislation against human trafficking. And the United Nations started giving a voice to human trafficking, started paying attention to human trafficking. But even at that, today is still something that is being practiced in the dark because since it is being outlawed and prohibited by the United Nations and among many other governments of the world, these things still goes on heavily, but mostly on the ground.
Yeah, very subtle.
Yeah, you see.
But okay, so, well, if the the United Nations and George W. Bush, his administration, if they had just recently in the early 2000s,
Yeah,
started labeling this, human trafficking criminal activity, to make sure that it's recognizable. How long before that has human trafficking been around? If we exclude the perennial aspect of the biblical human trafficking that was going on in the Bible, like in Nigeria specifically, when would you trace back the start of human trafficking, if it's traceable?
human trafficking is just reenactment of slavery in another form.
Right.
So I can tell you that human trafficking started as far back as slavery.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's just slavery, but in a more modern. In fact, another name for human trafficking is modern day slavery.
Modern day slavery, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah. So as far back as slavery.
I mean, even in the United States, several years ago, there was slavery in the United States, and we know that.
Exactly.
Like African Americans that were imported from Africa
Yeah.
were brought to do slave work, especially in the southern states, like to work in cotton fields and plantation camps.
Exactly.
So, but then obviously, as the United States developed, they eradicated slavery completely from the U.S. A good friend of mine would always tell me that it's only, in his words, like it's only in North America that slavery has, quote unquote, ceased to exist as we know it, right? Like, and oftentimes you're going to notice in Canada and the United States, we're extremely selfish. We're extremely when it comes to our media, especially. I'd like to focus on that when I mean selfish, because like it's as if the media is always pertaining to what concerns us, like Canadians, Americans, whatever. So in that respect, like oftentimes when people follow the news or follow politics or just stay in touch with everything going on, they're going to look at it from a North American point of view, and they're not going to realize that slavery is still continuing, like in Southeast Asia, in Asia, in Africa, and in the Middle East and in other parts of the world, even South America. I would assume that they're probably having slavery issues as well down there. So yeah, it's crazy how, like you mentioned, like human trafficking is a modern version of slavery.
Exactly.
And I'm glad that you're combating slavery in that respect, and I did, just to jump back to the Lonerganian corpus here, I did note something about Africa, here, that Brian McDonough actually presented.
Okay.
He said that, because Brian McDonough is a Catholic and he's pretty involved. He's a lawyer as well. He's involved in his community as a Christian.
Yeah.
He said that Africa is the center of gravity of Christianity, right?
Yeah.
And that and it has elements outside of North American corpus, right? So the Holy Spirit is the guiding force. So, in my prayers, obviously, I'm praying that the Holy Spirit actually, cleans up people's minds in order to eradicate human trafficking. As impossible of a task as it sounds like, I think it's something that, should be interesting. And I'm glad that you're introducing Christianity as a positive weapon to combat human trafficking, right?
Exactly.
Because Africa is going to be the beacon of Christianity in the world.
Exactly. I think that he's extremely right to come up with this. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to ask a lot of questions when he was making the presentation. And it's very true, going by what is happening in Africa. You can see that Africa is the epicenter of Christianity, and is going to continue to for many years to come. And this is quite understandable because Africans by nature, we tend to gravitate towards, we believe that there is a supernatural being somewhere that controls the affairs of men. That is even rooted in our own culture before the coming of the Christianity in Africa.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a kind of shift our attention from the traditional way that we knew God to the Christian way, and we embrace this Christianity in totality, in totality, and with every sense of commitment. And right now, what we are trying to do, because our people have had a lot of the gospel, so what we are trying to, the direction that is shifting now is, we are trying to use the Bible to address some of the key social issues that are confronting us in Africa, like poverty, like health. What does the Bible says about poverty? What does the Bible says about health? What does the Bible says about some other social issues like this human trafficking? So we are coming out with scriptural text to tell people that, look, you can be better.
Right.
Your life can be better. Your life can have value. You see, so that's why you see, and these things are speaking directly to the people, and the people are seeing the results of these things. That's why you see, people will continue to embrace faith in God. So what I see here is that the issue of human trafficking, as it is just one of the many other social issues that confronts us in Africa. And I'm so excited that the church in Africa is embracing it. Like during our conference on 1st December 2022, where we invited faith leaders of both Christians, Muslims, traditional worshippers, and the rest, for that one-day conference where we presented the manual.
All from Nigeria, or is it Africa?
No, it's Nigeria.
No, just Nigeria, okay.
Nigeria. We're getting there to the African level, but we want to be rooted in Nigeria. We want to see that what we are doing is fully concretized in
Right.
Nigeria, then we can begin to share the model with other African countries, because obviously it's not only Nigeria that is affected by human trafficking. Many other African countries,
Of course.
are also experiencing this. So perhaps this could be a kind of a model for them to follow. So we are so excited that people are keen into this, and in the nearest future, I strongly believe that when someone comes and he want to begin to want to traffic people, people already tell them, they will tell him, no, we know what you are up to. They either call the police for such a person, or they find a way of letting the person uh, uh, find his way. So it's such, and I'm so excited that even scholars here in the West, they are they are quite aware. They are very much on the know of uh, the move of God in Africa, you know. And my desire is that these things will really translate into improving the quality of life of the African. Because my own approach to theology is that it should be practical. We should use theology to answer societal issues that confront us.
Absolutely.
That is my own approach to theology. I believe that we should be able to find the answers to, like, the human trafficking from theology. We should be able to find answers to even the climate change theologically. Theology should be able to also contribute to that a global problem as well. We should be able to find answers to society. Why are people committing suicide?
Yeah.
Why are people having depression? Why are people experiencing different kind of hardships? The theology should be able to respond to this. So for me, I just took a little fraction of it and say, okay, let's see what theology does to human trafficking, and that's what we are doing practically. You know, I was so excited when he mentioned something in the class on Monday, when he mentioned when the Pope came to Canada, and he said, Jesus in your body is Indian. Was it in Canada or India? He mentioned something.
Yeah, like he's indigenous or something, or
yeah, indigenous. So it's indigenous. So
right.
what that means is that we should begin to find a way of presenting um, theology to people in the very way that they can understand.
Right, to make it relatable for according to their culture.
Make it relatable. Like Lonergan said that the ultimate purpose of theology is to what? Is to mediate
Right.
in the culture. Sorry, in the culture of the people. So I think that when we begin to focus our attention on that, I think we will profit more from this theology, and it is going to help in responding in a positive way to some of the mirage of the challenges that confront us as a people. But let me quickly make comments about your observation about the media in the West, where you feel that they could be selfish, they only talk about issues. But for me, I don't see it that way.
Right. So how would you see it?
Yeah, because I know that from time to time, some of the big media, Western media houses, the BBC, the CNN, and others, sometimes they do some documentaries on human trafficking as well. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they have programs that showcase some innovations or some things that happens in Africa. I think they have some space for those ones. May not be regular, but of course, you know, the purpose of media is to tell your own story.
Yeah, well, there are mixed feelings about that because I'm a bigger fan of neutrality where the media doesn't actually take sides because I just, whether I would like it or not, whether I'm a liberal or a conservative or whatever, I want to know the truth, right? And oftentimes, for years now, the media has given their own version of the narrative, which is 100% biased, and it's not a Canadian problem or an American problem. It's a
Yeah,
problem across the globe where you can have different
exactly.
media outlets spieling their own shit in their own way, and my issue with that is that that does not equate with the truth, right? The truth should be communicated in a neutral fashion where people get to contemplate the truth and take it from there, whether they hate it or like it, right? But
Mm.
unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in.
Yeah, unfortunately so, because people now, everybody wants to tell their own story in their own way.
Right.
So if you are looking for a kind of a neutral ground, in most cases, is very hard to find because it's also their own investment,
Right.
and it is also to protect their own interests and to project their own worldview as well. So maybe to be able to handle that, the world is now a global village, right?
Right.
Uh-huh. So I think for me, I listened to it from this perspective. I also listened to it from the other perspective.
Right.
I watch the Western media, and I also watch the local media of my community, and then I see the truth. So that way, I have a kind of a view of what goes on in both places. So that way, I save myself of that pressure of saying, "Oh, these people are not telling the truth. They only want to project their own."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you understand. So, but at least I've been able to hear from both sides, and I have both information.
Yeah, I mean, it does double or triple the work because, in a utopia or in an ideal world, you would have, many media outlets or just one news source or media outlet, which would all present the same story and the, the one and only truth.
Yeah, okay.
But we live in a world now where we're juggling with several truths, which I
Exactly.
do I understand, but at the same time I'm a bit allergic to, because depending on the topic, like at some point, like I'm a believer that some things are black and white, other things can be gray for sure, but a lot of things are simply black and white, and I'm not going to delve into what exactly those topics may be, but there are things in life that have been created that you know cannot diverge from their nature, and mankind is smart enough um, to force these things to sometimes drift away from what their natural predisposition is. Right, we're very smart, intelligent creatures, and we like to tweak things in our own way.
Exactly.
Which I do understand in a certain way because that's how development and progress in technology occurs, and I'm all for that. But yeah, that's the thing, man. It's just that if I'm looking for the truth, I don't want several versions, especially not contradicting versions of that truth. If I want to know what datum I'm looking for and what that datum is, right? And that becomes a point of contention among people because friendships are torn, families are torn sometimes just for having different political opinions, or even societal perspectives on different things in society, right? So yeah.
Well, but like you said, in an ideal world.
Right. It is like if we look at the media in Nigeria, for instance,
Yes.
are they neutral or are they politically ambitioned or? Um,
Yeah, I think I must have to say that to a very larger extent, the media in Nigeria has been liberalized, unlike during the military era many years ago, when it was the military that were controlling the government.
okay.
Of course, during that time, the media was finding it very, very difficult. In most medias who would want to project the truth in society were either shut down or somehow they seize their license or something.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but since Nigeria became a democracy in 1999, I think the media has enjoyed a lot of freedom.
What was it before 1999? A monarchy or
No,
a dictatorship?
before then it was the military. It
That's
was
okay.
a military system of government,
Right.
where the military takes over the government, and then he becomes the military head of state with his uniform. Every now you see a president in the military uniform,
Right.
and then he had his ministers. Minister of Communication, Minister of Transportation, Minister of Health, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of, and so on. And all those ones, sometimes some of them could be military men or some may not be. Then, however, in 1999, Nigeria moved to democracy. Under the circumstance, people can now go to the ballot boxes to elect who they want to be their president. Unlike during the military era, somebody will just come up and show himself and say that he is from today, he is the head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
So we would do a coup d'etat.
Coup d'etat.
Right. Okay.
And then suspend the constitution, then begin to rule by decree.
All right.
You get a point now. You say today this is this law, this is that law, and it stands. Nobody questions.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a dictatorship.
Yeah, but right now, from 1999, it was democracy. So Nigeria had a democratically elected government in 1999 till then, uninterrupted. So since that time, the media has experienced tremendous freedom. So the media can say things that the government is not doing right. You can hear it in those private media houses. They talk about it. They make it open, and then the media houses in Nigeria is very vibrant. They don't have restriction. However, they have what they call the broadcasting code.
Okay.
So that is to say that there is a standard that they have to uphold based on the National Broadcasting Commission. Now, for example, one of them is that you cannot bring somebody in your studio to say incitive, unfounded statements.
Like no fake news,
no
or disinformation,
news.
that kind of thing.
Yeah,
okay.
No fake news, or
That's good.
somebody come and use vulgar language
Okay.
on the personality on air, and the presenter did not caution the guests. Now that could be an infraction on the law.
Well, in what capacity? Like, let's say somebody cusses or uses swear words. Like, I know I've used a couple of swear words today. Like, in what capacity would that person be limited, or when would it be permitted? In different.
Okay, no, I think it's not about swear word or not swear word, because you could be talking on air and a conversation could become so intense that you may want to say, you want to swear, you get the point now?
Okay, like insulting the other person or something.
But it's more or less insulting.
Okay.
Yeah, or saying things that are not verifiable.
Okay.
You understand?
Right. Yeah, like just emotional outbursts. Just
emotional
saying bullshit,
outbursts
that kind of thing.
without. You can say your emotional outburst with facts,
right,
and figures.
Yeah, if it's unfounded, then it should be said, basically.
And then you shouldn't abuse others.
Right.
Yeah, because no matter the sentiment at that point, you shouldn't abuse somebody. You see now, you should be able to talk with decorum in the media house. So those are some of the things. But generally, I can say that the Nigerian media space is very, very free.
Well, that's good news. Like, it sounds like good news when we're all for freedom here. And I think it's great that that there's that transition towards not necessarily more of a liberal stance because obviously with North America in today's turmoil, like there's this whole debate about like free speech and whether or not it should be censored or not censored. Like we're far beyond the emancipation of a dictatorship. Now we're dealing with another demon completely, which would be a talk for another day, obviously. But yeah, I think it's super interesting how we really talked about a set of different things. We reviewed Brian McDonough on the surface with what he presented on Monday, and we really went into depth with human trafficking. And I couldn't help but observe the strange similarity in human trafficking with what you're describing from the Nigerian perspective, but also with what Brian McDonough brought up with the indigenous people that got stripped away from their families and shoved into residential schools. Like that is also a form of human trafficking. You're trafficking human beings for other purpose.
Because you took them away from their parents and they were subjected to abuse.
Right.
That is.
I mean that could be food for thought for your project, because you can definitely draw the analogy with that particular case or other cases in other parts of the world.
Oh yeah.
Wow. I don't know if I told you the story about one of my friends. He's a mechanical engineer. Okay. And he basically was getting job opportunities with his company and in different places in the world. So basically he would fly to Singapore for 3 months, then come back, then fly to Mexico and come back, and fly to India and come back. But he would think is like, people would be thinking like, wow, you get to travel for work. I mean, it has its pros and cons because the guy was working 12-hour days.
Oh wow.
So I would think that he was getting exploited as fuck, because like you think about it, like you're working 12, 16 hours a day, and obviously the guy wasn't unionized or anything, but he was still working as a mechanical engineer, right? So he's working in it, getting his reps in basically. But here's where the story gets interesting, because at one point he was in Singapore, and there were some business executives that were coming in to basically have meetings and all, and they would go out to a massive nightclub in Singapore. Apparently it has like five floors basically for that nightclub. But the rule was that you're not allowed to go on the 5th floor, the top floor. But there was like a nightclub on every single floor. Like you can party at floor 1 to 4, but you just can't go to floor 5.
Wow.
So he decides to go to floor 5 against the
rules,
the instructions that were given to him. And he was basically just peeking through, taking a look, and he and his colleague, my friend and his colleague, they noticed that there was a form of transaction going on, right? And it was human trafficking, because there were 2, gangs, and they had the girls lined up, and they were trading one girl for the other for whatever price or whatever amount. And the minute he saw that, he's scurried out of there, because you don't want to get caught while watching that type of transaction. Like that's 100% private. I'm actually surprised he had access to witness that kind of thing. So yeah, they were trading these girls, like this Asian girl would be this price, and that Asian girl would be that price, and it's absolutely disgusting, right? When you think about it, because like you're putting a price tag on a human being. So that's another form of human trafficking, that exists, and it goes beyond the African territory, right? Yeah. So I mean, it's all about doctrine and systematics at the end, right?
Yeah,
If you have the right doctrine and you practically put in the right systematics, the ideological strongholds will be broken one day. But it has to, action has to be taken. Right? Because this kind of shit has to stop. Right? And it's
but unfortunately, I don't think, I'm not too sure we'll be able to stop this completely. We may be able to contribute in reducing it, but just like any other crime, like drug abuse and so on, because it's a global networking, and fighting human trafficking requires a lot of technical expertise,
Right.
and a lot of funding as well. And you have to be, in Africa, we'll say, very spiritual, right? Because you are going into a very strong territory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so um, uh, we can, the only point that it can stop is, I'm talking it, but anyway, we can reduce it drastically, right? If the, the governments of different countries begin to enforce. But again, there is a limitation to stopping it completely, because some people, you may be so surprised to even hear that they may have uh, their members even in the highest places of governance, and if you are requesting for uh, uh, if you are saying um, eradication, now you will see that there are some people somewhere, they may be working against you, but you may not know it.
Do you feel that right now? Like, as you're working against human trafficking, do you feel like you're getting a lot of pushback and opposition? Like, do you feel like you have a lot of enemies in the landscape?
Of course, because sometimes you submit some letters, um, maybe in the government offices for some certain things, and then those letters are taking more time than expected.
Right.
Or sometimes you may not even get an answer at all. So what does that tell you?
Well, it's that either people are incompetent or that people are not giving a shit.
Yeah, there are some people that maybe they are part of the cartel, and how can this happen?
Mm-hmm.
You see, and then yeah, it could be attributed to a lot of factors, but certainly, um, this thing is interconnected, and so you may be dealing with somebody who is working against you. You may not know.
Right.
Yeah.
You may not know.
You may not know.
And but hopefully your efforts are gonna be fruitful in the end. And I know you're very passionate about it, and there is definitely a lot of work ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
From the looks of it and the sounds of it, but I'm very confident that you're gonna make it and that you're
Yeah.
gonna make a difference. Even if you don't erase it completely, I'm pretty sure that you're gonna be a true acting force against human trafficking, not only as a pastor,
Yeah.
but also as a true Bible believing Christian who believes in the truth and in the prevalence of love.
Yeah.
And knowing that, it's not a call out of naivete or anything, but love truly eradicates all evil.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
all this evil stuff that's going on with the human trafficking will be combated, and as long as you keep on working for years to come on that type of project, I think it would be important not to give up and just to keep pushing forward with your efforts.
Definitely, yes.
Right, yeah.
And I really appreciate this goodwill, because I'm so excited that that I'm in Canada at the moment. I'm so very, very excited, and I also look forward to. I'm trying to find out ways that I can also contribute um, in dealing with this, even here in Canada. You know, no society is immune.
That's right.
Yeah, so definitely I'm working and reaching out to one or two people that I also know that they are involved in this. There are lots of people. Even the government of Canada has a policy statement of human trafficking, and it's such a very comprehensive document. And I think that there are some, is it employment or something, that if you will see a quick information about human trafficking in Canada here. So the Canadian government is not also sleeping. They are doing a lot. I have read a couple of documents officially from the government of Canada on human trafficking. They are doing extremely well, and there are some individuals. I come across the organization of one former member of the parliament in Canada here. I think she's a very good Christian. She's also involved in in combating human trafficking, and she has a document that she's using like a kind of a Bible studies, like the manual that we have also. And last 2 weeks, I mean, 1 month ago, I also had. I met one other woman here in Canada as well, and she's doing extremely well in this. And she was the one that let me know that um, that that here in Canada is more of through the social media.
Right.
Yeah, and it's quite understandable because here is a more the accessibility to internet is very much easy, and to cell phones as well. Unlike in Africa or in Nigeria, yeah, the accessibility to phone is quite, it has increased tremendously, but to Wi-Fi or internet, they don't have as much access as here.
Right.
Yeah, because you buy the data every now and then. So
Right.
it's only those people that have some extra money they can afford to buy. So but here I think it's through the use of the social media. So no society is immune, and we as human beings, it is our responsibility to always create the change we want to see anywhere and everywhere we go to.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be a great place to basically. I'm not going to say stop the conversation, but let's take a pause for today. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
thanks for coming on again, man. It's great that we were able to graft a part 2 on top of a shorter part 1. You know, part 2 is actually longer.
Really.
We delved into so many different things, and we had a wonderful conversation. In my opinion, I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh wow! I must say, it's always I always look forward to this interaction with you because you are also very versatile and you are deep and well knowledgeable. So when we talk like this, it's built me up. It's a kind of put me what do I put me on the road,
Yeah, feeds your thoughts.
So
Right.
and you have a grip of what you're doing very well. So I think
Wonderful.
It's a great thing.
Well, I'm glad that you're happy with that, and it's
it's
good validation, to hear that. So
exactly, I'm extremely happy, and I look forward to more of this. That we continue to keep the department very, very active and also going. So this is very great.
yeah, I mean, and for the future, for upcoming episodes, I'm thinking perhaps like you can come on over, and I know from the inception that you wanted to be part of the project, which is wonderful, and we're going to be talking to Ernest and Zach, and perhaps even Rhea. Perhaps we can have some roundtable discussions about certain topics that are pertinent for theology and even beyond. Like we can dip into sociology, anthropology, psychology, philosophy, history, or whatever other fields that may be interesting relating to theology and religion. So yeah, I'm thinking, this is not the last that you're going to see of Nandom.
Exactly.
We're going to have Nandom back for sure.
Yeah.
I'm envisioning certain roundtable discussions with 3 or 4 people for some episodes, and obviously we're going to have other guests. Stay tuned for Zach Bourgeois. Zach Bourgeois is going to be here next week. In the meantime, I might have an impromptu guest here and there. I doubt it though, but it might happen that some guests will call me up, or I'll call them up and say, "Hey, are you free tomorrow?" And here we go. We're going to be back in the studio in the Bernard Lonergan Center, which I'm turning into the Off Bishop Street 2.0 studio.
It's good. It's nice. It's lovely. It's wonderful.
I think it's a nice place. We have a nice bookshelf right here with all the Lonerganian material that you like. A whole bunch of bookshelves here and portraits and stuff.
Exactly.
So I think this is a great place to end. Thank you so much, guys, for listening, and tune in for next time. And on that note, stay smart, stay safe, and enjoy your life. I think that's good advice, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Very well.
Oh, wonderful. I'm
Very
just
well.
gonna stop this right here.
Yeah. Wow.
That was great.
This is so